Hello, hello, hello. We are going live here. Hello, hello, hello. We're just going to give it a second. Welcome everyone to Archi-Tech Network. Usually takes a second or two for us to go live, and then we jump into it. So, guys, welcome to episode 8 of Archi-Tech Talks Live. We've been doing this for, I think, since beginning-ish of the year, and we're now on episode 8. We're actually going to be ramping these up as we get closer to our summit. But today, we've got a pretty special guest. We've got Rob Asher from Giraffe, the CEO and founder of Giraffe, who is tuning in all the way from Australia. And I'm going to do my drum roll unrolling. Rob, here he is.
Hey guys.
Welcome to the live. I feel like that
Yes.
could have been. I need a little drum roll there, but
The you need one of those like streaming decks with just sounds and all sorts. Yeah, yeah.
Rob, thank you so much for coming on our live. We really appreciate it because you're our first Aussie or down under presenter, which means it's pretty early for you right now. But
Yes.
we,
Nah,
but
it's
it's
good.
summer. It's
Yeah,
summer
yeah,
over
yeah.
there, so
It is.
we're freezing
Yeah.
our tits off over here, and you're nice
We're
and warm. But
reclining. That's it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. For those of you in the audience that have not heard of Giraffe, hopefully you have at this point. We had Rob on our podcast where you can hear a little bit of his background and the founder story, which is pretty interesting. You've got quite an interesting background in mathematics and computation and everything. But Giraffe, you're another one of these players in this BIM 2.0 era, for lack of a better term, of everything that's going on. But I think you guys have quite a unique position, right? You've almost become like a platform to sort of bring all these different stakeholders together in the building process, from, citywide policy, governments, investors, developers, architects, into this platform where it's almost, I really liked on the podcast when you were describing it sort of as like a city building platform,
Mm.
right? A place to kind of evaluate plots, quickly generate ideas, and turn scripts into very quick and accessible ways to generate a building, generate facades, and actually analyze the data behind it, right? So
Hmm.
uh, I'm really interested to see what you guys have. I see you guys all the time. You've been doing some pretty cool collaborations more recently with some of the other BIM 2.0 people, which is another kind of interesting aspect, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I would say that like the collaboration thing, I'm sort of theorizing on what the BIM 2.0 era will look like, obviously. And I think it's going to be an ecosystem. I think the era of the monolith, the one big
Mm.
package, probably goes away. Like our business, I just to get like I don't know how many SaaS subscriptions Giraffe has, but I'm going to say it's probably about 50. As in, we've got
Wow.
like we've got like HubSpot and Notion and Zoom and Loom and then this and this and this and this and like a million, right?
Yeah.
Honest, no, about 50, but most of them talk to each other. As in, you're connecting. So if something happens, like in the Giraffe database, it'll create a HubSpot entry, which will create a zero invoice, which will create you know what I mean? So like all of
Yeah.
those back
Yeah.
end business processes. And I think the same is going to sort of happen in the BIM level, where if you want to be doing this kind of BIM, you're in Conic. If you want to be doing this, you're in, Giraffe or Snapdroid or
Mm.
Arcol. Do you know what I mean? And so then you can orchestrate stuff as an architect, much more, I guess, proactively, rather than this big. I want to say rhino, but a big elephant of a package that sort of does everything, but also
Yeah.
locks you in.
I mean, it's a kind of interesting view because some people see this as like the BIM 2.0 goal is to be the Revit killer, right? This
That's
monolithic
that's exactly
platform.
what yeah, exactly what I was reacting to. I was like, we don't need another one. Like, you know what I mean? Like the king's dead, long live the king kind of thing. You want like a. I think there's a future which is much more open, as
Mm.
in, which is part of the reason like we use GeoJSON, which is just text and just JSON, because from like it would never occur to me as a practitioner to use a closed format. Like
Right.
it's not repulsive. It's not you're just like no, not even a starter. Like because I know I'm going to be going because I used to be in Rhino heaps from Grasshopper. Then I'm going to instantiate some families in Revit. using a little Dynamo script that's passing JSON. Then I'm going to push it into, do you know what I mean? And once you've got that mindset, you're sort of free. Like I'll show you guys in a second. I built like I was building a report in Giraffe. I may have said this in the podcast, but I needed SVG for Figma. So I do a lot of my reports in Figma and diagrams.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a Figma exporter, but Giraffe's JSON and JSON SVG, there's like a billion functions that do that. So you just say to the LLM, hey, make me a little function that turns my GeoJSON into SVG. Done. So yeah, data. One of the other ways I sort of thought about it was data first as opposed to package first. So rather than saying, "Oh, you guys in Revit or Rhino or Archi-CAD," you flip it on your head and you say, how do you guys keep your data? What data are you looking at? And then the packages are the second question, which is more natural, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, guys, remember, as I'm going to hand it over to Rob in a second, as Rob is going through demos, presentations, do put your questions in the comments below this video, and I'll read them out at the end. Or if they come up as we go, I'll jump in and ask Rob as we go. So add your comments. Don't be shy. There's no bad questions here. There's no silly questions. Otherwise, Rob, I'll hand it over to you.
Cool. Awesome. And I'm just going to share the screen. And most of what I do is I just demo. So I'll just let the tool do the talking. And Ollie, just stop me if I stutter or freeze or whatever. But hopefully connections. I'm the only man awake in Sydney right now, so we should be good. I've got the entire. All right. So the first thing, I'm just going to move like me away. There we go. All right. So you guys can see Giraffe now, hopefully. The first thing that we did is kind of got a bit meta. So what you're seeing on the screen is all of my projects within this workspace. And I'm actually a member of multiple workspaces, which I won't open because some of them are confidential. And those can be clients. And so when you get Giraffe, you get a workspace. Because in practice, as in architectural practice, like the data leakiness is so huge and catastrophic that was almost one of the first things we tried to solve. When I was in practice, I was always part of an ongoing research group around knowledge management. Like, how do we manage firm knowledge? And everyone's got like their little folders and their scripts, etc. And so this is what we theorized. And so you can see in Giraffe, like I see all my projects in the map because, uniquely, like unlike Figma, a Figma board doesn't happen in space, but an architectural problem always happens in space. And so I'm able to like jump into these projects and sort of see what's happening. I can see the preview over here and I can get metadata on the projects. So like this is a deck with AI or this is structure in Giraffe. I can tag it. Every workspace will have different tags. Some developers may be tagging like whether people are willing to sell. Architects may tag it by sector. I'm Giraffe, so I tag it by Giraffe feature or sector. So we sell to developers, governments, and architects. But then I also just add tags. And then I can just right click and open this project. And so what you're getting with this, right, is this kind of ability to jump in and out of projects, which is extremely powerful. So if I get a call and someone's got a site over here, I may have done a project over there, or someone in my firm may have done more projects. And if we go to my actual Giraffe team workspace, this is like how many projects me and the team have done, right? We actually have a number of Giraffe projects. So if you were a large architecture firm, you can imagine covering your area of practice with projects. And you can see it's not only projects, it's also data. So Giraffe lets you pull in any GIS data. So I've got I think London, if I turn off the application filter, the Greater London Authority, I've got, so the site, these are all the London layers that we have, which is huge. We just recently added Bangkok. We've got Hong Kong, Singapore, we've got the USA, we've got users in Finland. And basically the way it works is you can connect to any map server, feature server, OGC, geospatial server, WMS, web map services, or you can upload images or vectors, so GeoJSON, shapefile, DXF, so you can create your own data layers. Those are all GIS words. And GIS is basically BIM for geography, people. I like it almost more than BIM, because it's older, it's very old. I think it was like most of the stuff was invented, maybe the 50s, maybe the 60s, by the US Army Corps of Engineers. And so the concepts are very clear. There's geometry plus data. And it works beautifully. And Giraffe's actually a GIS tool. I'll show you that in a second. But for an architectural practice, now what this means is you've got your projects, plus you've got all the zoning and the cadastral data and the elevation data, and we've got like the open infrastructure. So you've got the power lines, and you'll have the temperature and the whatever city context, whatever urban context you need to make a good design, to convince your client that you understand their site in a deeper way, or to actually understand their site in a deeper way, whether you're working at a master plan scale or whether you're working at an individual house scale. This is just so important. And to me, like, the foundation of good design is context analysis, and the foundation of context analysis is having some information. So the best thing to do is obviously go to the sites, stay there, take some photos, and the second best thing to do is just layer up the maps. All right, so this is kind of like the meta, the Giraffe meta. So I'll just get back to my portfolio enterprise, and then I'll create a project. So I'll do one in Sydney, and let's just do one here. So to create a project, the way I normally do it is, turn on the cadastral parcels. I think this looks like a school. Yeah, that's a school. So let's acquire all of these sites over here and do some sort of project over here. So you see, I can turn on like water pipes, and I've got the land zoning. So this is all R2, which in in Sydney or New South Wales is low density res. But we're like you guys, we have a housing crisis. Everyone has a housing crisis. So there's massive upscaling and upzoning and systematization of applications to try and accelerate it. So we'll try and leverage some of that. So I can create a project here by right-clicking, which sends a request back to the GeoServer, brings back the data, and I'll create this new project, and I'll call it ATN demo, and I'll demo drawing, and I'll say the sector is architects. And that's just so I'll find that thing later, and then I save the project. Now I could apply a template and bring in or share this project at this moment. Like I said, I could bring in like custom, like a templatized data layers, or usages and types, etc., or share it with teams, but I won't do that for now. And now we're in the project, and I'm going to edit the boundary. So edit the project boundary just by typing the space bar, just like Rhino, and then stretching this out. So now my site boundary covers the parcels that I wanted to cover. All right, and normally what I do now is kind of layer up something to understand this site. So I've got the six maps imagery, which is a government imagery service from the New South Wales government. And frequently I turn off you see it says Plimpton Road over there. I turn off the map labels and the trees. And I also fade back the cadaster. And so Giraffe here is kind of like a little bit like maybe Adobe Illustrator or something like that, where I'm trying to achieve a graphic standard. And we can go quite deep. So if I open this 3D buildings layer here from Mapbox, I can click on this lens table, and I can restyle this entire this entire layer. And I can say, hey, for this, I want to make it black, or I want to make these things red, right? And that'll make all the buildings red. And so if you have like a, Rem Koolhaas, or, if you have a graphic style or standard within your firm, you can start mucking around with Giraffe, and it won't take you all the way to sort of Figma or Adobe, but it'll take you pretty far. And what's also really nice about it is you can do data-driven styling. So if I style the buildings by height, you can see these ones are taller than those ones, so they're a darker blue. And if I had richer data, say age or occupant or tenure type or program, then I would be able to style these buildings by those attributes. And so basically any vector data that comes into Giraffe, you can style. So for example, if I zoom out, we find some power lines from which are these gray things from open infrastructure. There's quite a lot of them, and but you can see there's all this data is coming through from the power line. So there's the type of power line, so minor line and line. I think there's a volt. There are voltage, but the voltage in this area is not that great. So sometimes it shows you the voltage if the open infrastructure maintainers have added it. Other times it doesn't. So you may color by voltage, right? these power lines. But if we just zoom back to our place, and it's easy to get lost in Giraffe because the map's always on, as in whether you're in your project or out of your project, you can always see your portfolio as a layer, and you can also see all the data. So you're always in the world. So we've got this little like recenter button so you can find your way back. All right, so let's get rid of that color and just make those buildings white again. Fixed color. Something like that. Okay, so there they are. All right, and so let's say these houses are to be demolished, and we're going to do a master plan over here. So, and I've brought in the data. Maybe we should talk to elevation. So I'll bring in the elevation contours. I can bring in the Mapbox ones, or New South Wales has them. The US has them. Sort of every geography has them, and there they come at the bottom. And it'll take a while for them to load. And if I fade back. So I can also reorder the display of the layers. It's probably hard for you to see. Sorry if I actually reorder that. Oh, that's not working. But it's going from 100 to 92, so there's an 8 meter fall. So it's not huge. Okay, it wants me to do that. There we go. So now if I fade that back up, again, probably hard for you to see, but those elevation contours are sitting on top of that 6 maps imagery now. All right, so let's say we've analyzed this site, we've looked at it, we've looked at nearby projects, we've got an idea from our client what they want to do. Now we can actually start, I guess, annotating. And so this is where Giraffe, again, is kind of like SketchUp. Sorry, not like SketchUp, like Illustrator. It gets like SketchUp in a second. And it's all property driven. So because Giraffe is GeoJSON, there are only 3 primitive data types, which is point, line, and polygon. I guess you could say multi-polygon, which is like a group of polygons. But if I draw like a line like this, right, it comes in as a line, geolocated. We're translating it to Cartesian, so it's lat long, like it's if I show you this, it's got its coordinates, which are 151 minus 33, so latitude, longitude. However, we also have these Cartesian coordinates, which are these, we're translating it so it's in an X and Y space. So it'll come into Revit or Rhino according to a transformation. If you guys have ever tried to geolocate a survey or had to work at scale and deal with shapefiles, with like Meerkat or Heron, there's a bunch of QGIS, there's a bunch of sort of geospatial stuff in Rhino and in the ecosystem. You'd sort of know this pain. But this line is just a line, and these are its properties that it has right now. If you look at the raw database, so this JSON, this is what actually sits on the Giraffe database. So it's got a stack order, an app ID, a bunch of properties that make sense to the Giraffe system. So this is project 64994. But now I can just add properties to this thing. So if I add like a stroke, just like SVG or like Illustrator, and I make it red, and I hit save, the line goes red. And if I add stroke width, the line will take whatever stroke width I add. I think 1/8 maybe. There we go. So now I've got a really thick red line. So what we do, instead of like letting you muck around with this raw data, we just display the data over here. So you can see the line color is the stroke property. And so I can then go and change it. So it's just the way that Giraffe works is the raw geometry plus these properties that you add get interpreted by the Giraffe engine and then get displayed or exported. And sort of once you've got that, you kind of get the whole of Giraffe. And I mean, there may be other ways of doing this, but basically I think you sort of understand how data sits on a database. Like I think Revit, Archi-Tech, Rhino, I don't think there's much more to, I don't understand how you would store geometry and properties unless you have this kind of a mechanism. So to make an arrow, right, what we need to do is we need to add, let's do this dashed arrow. We just need to add a bunch of properties. Here they all are. So like there's stroke, dash, arrow, end, all of this sort of stuff. But we just render and look at them nicely like this. So we can change the end arrow sort of size, and I think even the yaw, so sort of all sorts of these properties. and make things look good. So enough of that, and properties, banging on about properties. Let's divide this site up sort of architecturally and say, well, maybe what's cool here is, definitely what's cool about this site is it's surrounded by bush. So let's get rid of the stroke, make this arrow green, make it wider. You can even make square. I only found this out recently. You can either make square or round arrowheads. So I put in a feature request for it, and it was done. I just didn't know. So there's tons and tons of properties in the Giraffe system. And the more you know, it's probably about 200, 300. Once you know them all, you can do anything. But often it takes a while to learn them all. I may zone some stuff up. We actually have, I think in here, we have like a region. And maybe actually this is time for me to introduce the next concept in Giraffe, which is usages, which I would say is analogous to like Revit families or categories. And basically they're just buckets of properties that are not attached to any geometry. But I have like a region property, a region category or usage that has a color baked in. And so I'll make it a bit redder. It's got a fill opacity. It's got a dash array, a line width. It's got all of this sort of stuff. It's got, a whole bunch of properties. It's called region. And if I apply this region usage to this geometry, right, it's going to get all of those properties. So let me turn off the imagery just so you can see that clearly. So now this is applying to this. So this geometry doesn't have this red color, but it flows down through the usage. So there's actually two ways you can apply properties to a Giraffe geometry, either directly or through these usages. So I'll save that. No, cancel. I'll save that. And let's make this a bit darker. And just make this 1 and save that. All right. And you can see I made it lighter. There we go. So now you can see there's this sort of, it's all flowing through. And what I'm trying to do here is divide the site into kind of buildable areas. You can see it's giving a label there of 2,800 square meters. So maybe we'll divide something like this. And maybe since we need to have a connection there, there's really like half a parcel back here that we'll do something with. We'll figure out that. All right. So there's our sort of 3 pads where we'll put built form. I'm going to turn off the buildings because they're frustrating for now. And now we can just change this color. So make it a bit darker. There we go. So I've done the crudest of crude site analyses or sort of design moves, diagrams. And now we can actually start drawing. And that graphically is not terrible, right? You can put that, I think, like the goal here is that you can put this in front of a client and not feel embarrassed. And you can do this live with a client, so you can sit with them and draw. And now things will speed up a lot because the next thing that Giraffe becomes is kind of like SketchUp. So my usages include not only these like arrow types and region types, but also all the built form and program. So I've got like a retail usage. And the retail usage is a bit richer. It's got sort of a floor to floor. It's got an efficiency and a cell efficiency. It's got a parking required. It's got a whole bunch of data around how many jobs this is going to create, the net rent, the construction cost. And you as a user can always add your own. So you could add Revit family type or whatever it would be, and just create that property and make it text. And either put a hash like ID or put in a name, whatever you'd want. Whatever you want. Your client may have 4 or 5 types of retail, or you may want to know KPA, like kilopascal on the structural slab or the power draw. You just add these properties to the retail usage. And then when the user or when the designer is drawing the shape, all of those properties flow through. And it's very much like SketchUp. So, what I will do actually, this is annoying. So you can see I'm selecting the wrong thing there. So what I'm going to do is chuck all of this stuff on a different layer. So I can either go to the layer menu, create a layer, but we've got this nice little convenient, and I'll call this site analysis and create that layer. And so now all of that stuff's on site analysis. And then I'll I'll activate the default layer, so I'm drawing on it, and lock side analysis. And now I should not, see now I can't click on it. And that very much like Rhino or ArchiCAD or sort of any package you've ever used, Photoshop. All right, and it's very shortcut based. I'm mad about shortcuts, so I can add and remove levels, and I can hit X and split, and I can sculpt and form that way. And Giraffe is very much designed to kind of, be playful. And you're sitting in a meeting or in a design charrette, and you are seeing stuff live. Just playing with form, and someone says, "No, that's not going to work. That's a terrible acute angle. It feels like you're being attacked. So we can just chamfer that thing off, and we can cut this thing, or we can say, well, does this work? Should we put like a little through side link like that?" You can't intersect points in Giraffe. So self-intersecting polygons will throw that little error that you just saw, and we can divide stuff up. And we can recolor things, so maybe that's a cafe, that's a library, that's a liquor store, maybe whatever it is. So you can, chop and plan and slice. And what's happening is the Giraffe system on the right-hand side is just doing all the area calculations all the time. So this is the total retail. So your gross building, your net building, your sellable building, your maximum height, your facade area if you turn it on. A whole bunch of data is dropping out of this very, very simple model all the time. And that's kind of our point. Like, that's the stuff that the computer's really good at, is taking complex sets of assumptions like this, hundreds and hundreds of data points, and then doing hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of calculations, and then presenting the result back to you. Like, to me, that's the best use of AI. That's like, it's tedious and annoying, and you get the computer to do it for you. All right, so we've got our weird little retail thing over there, and we'll put some residential. Maybe this is the next thing that we can add in. So we've got the maps that I've shown. You've got the mapping. We've got this sort of usage data category stuff. The next thing we have is actually like a grasshopper in Giraffe. So I loved Grasshopper. And this whole like geometry, this whole sort of like root geometry with properties on it was basically the way that you use Grasshopper. Like, it was so heavily informed by that, where you draw like two lines in Rhino, and you put one on one layer and one on another layer, and then you read those lines into Grasshopper, and then you do stuff with them. So very, that's where that came from. And so we have algorithms. So if I want apartments, I can draw a single line, and then the computer generates all of these apartments. And if you want to sort of understand a bit more about that data flow, you can see what's going on here. So this is, you just read the feature and you create an apartment. So this box here, our team builds. So we build what I call the big algorithms. So those are things like apartments. We've got a subdivision. We've got a few others as well. I'll show you. The key to look for is dendrogram. That's our big one. So apartments, enclosed polygon is huge. Envelope is great. I'll show you envelope in a second. Grid fill is fantastic. That like makes a grid of columns. Parking lots, that's another massive one. But then we've got all the classic small ones like add, map, all the ones you'd see in Grasshopper. Take the first item, divide, construct a vector. And I can double click on the canvas and look for these things. So vector, vector angle, vector from north, all of these sort of things. So I call these ones small algorithms. Like, these are normally doing something very small, very discrete, and you join them together. This is a big monster, but it does a very useful job very quickly. So let's say we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And these kind of little Juliet balconies are not doing it for me. We can change. So those are all, you can parameterize all of those things. You can change the internal and the external offsets. So you can have them basically fully inside the buildings like this. So because this algorithm is so big, and so, what would I say? There's been many, many person years of development on this algorithm. It's got a lot of depth and complexity, and it can do a lot of things. So have a play with it. It can't do everything, but it can do a lot of things. One thing it can't do, for example, is it can't deal with the ends of buildings. So often what we suggest is if you have a building like this, use the algorithm to draw most of it, but then draw the end bit yourself. So maybe we'll put one large 3-bedroom sort of, apartments over there. And then maybe I'll just draw the balcony in manually. So this mixture between kind of automatic and manual is a key sort of thing that Giraffe also tries to do. Because you always, every project's unique. You always need to jump in. Can we, what's this, chamfer around one corner? No, you have to do it manually like I'm doing now. All right, so there's our building, and some other algorithms, like some classic ones, would be some landscape. So we can do like a row of trees. And if you look at what's happening here, it's just grabbing a line, it's putting an array on it, and then it's writing this feature out. So it's like a very, very simple little algorithm. I'll do this little parklet. I like this tree-lined park. So maybe we need a sports field over here, or not a sports field, but a dog park. And that one's pretty easy. What it's doing is taking the raw geometry, rounding the corners by 10 meters, which is maybe too much. Let's go 5 meters. And then grabbing the edge, putting the trees, and then outputting the trees in the park. Sort of that simple. And I can change the colors, etc., by mucking around with my usages. So the usages, the guiding geometry, the little polygon, and the flow all work together. And there's like this cascade of data through the system, which means that I don't have to do much and the system does heaps. And so I've got like a dwelling mix. I know how many car parks I need. I know my landscaped area. I can do my facade area. I've got so much information. I don't even look kind of at the right-hand panel, right? I just don't munge that data. Giraffe's doing all of that. But what I, as the architect or as the designer, need to understand is the way that this system is architected, like how the data flows through, and then be able to leverage it. And I would say it's very, very similar to Excel. Like if you're building like an area schedule or a financial model or a program, like a zoned model, etc. in Excel, Giraffe, you should think of it as maybe 3 or 4 Excel sheets. There's like the inputs, there's the geometries, there's the flows, like the transformations. But once you've got it worked out, it works like an absolute charm. So let's do another option now, and I'll build a flow for you because I think that could be fun. So this is the default. So what I'll do is I will duplicate this layer, and then I'll turn off default, and I'll rename default to option 1 and default copy to option 2. The amount of time we've spent trying to make this layer menu nice, like that you can double click and resort and group, etc., is extreme. So these are the options, the optoins. So, I can collapse that, turn off everything, open it, turn on everything. It's fun. Okay, so here's option 2. So option 2, I'm going to say, we need a difference. Maybe instead of like an L-shaped building, we do a high building like this. And I guess we better do that like this. And maybe we do another one. Right, this. And I'll just drop those guys off like that. Maybe not the world's most efficient building, and it's got a suitably dystopian feel. There we go. And I'll put, now look at that. Look at the sun, right? Because we've got the solar in here, we can sort of test the sun at any moment, right? And you can see that's not working in winter. This is every day of the year. You can see their daylight saving. Here's winter in Australia. It never gets that dark, but so I've changed the time. This is one day, 28th of October but I can also change the day and keep the time constant. So obviously the sun is most annoying in winter. And actually this is totally fine because this is facing north. This place is always going to get a bit of sun. Something that you may do is I'm just going to mirror this. So I use the snap key and I use the mirror key, and now I'm using the base point move by hitting B. So B, snap, and then shift B to rotate. So I get that thing exactly right. So now I'm making like a more, like a sun trap over there. And now let's make a flow. Let's say the scheme is accepted and people are interested, and now we just need to do a bit of design development. These trees are too big, so I'll add a scale parameter and just scale them down, scale property. And I could put them on a landscape layer if I wanted to. But let's make a flow. And what I'll do is I'll do a very simple flow which does articulates the facade. So, okay, hang on, I moved way too quickly there. In Giraffe, not like Grasshopper, the flow lives on the geometry, right? So now I've created this identity flow and I've attached it to this geometry. This geometry has no flow. So this identity flow, let's just rename it, and I'm going to call it Facade Maker. Right, so now this geometry has Facade Maker. So now this Facade Maker flow is in the document, it's in the project, so I can go and apply it to anything I want, but it needs to, the way you don't reference geometries into the flow, you reference flows onto the geometries. You can reference geometries into the flow, but you need to reference a flow onto the geometry. And I'll show you why that's cool in a second. All right, so here's Facade Maker, and the default is it reads the root feature. So that's this feature, it reads it in, and then it just writes it out. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna muck around with this geometry and write it out. So I'm gonna use this stroke dash transform that we have. And stroke dash is a cool transform. It takes in a line or a polygon and converts it to a line, and it breaks it into a pattern, a stroke dash pattern. So very similar to SVG. So if you have a line, you see this dash, and if I go 1, 5, 3, 1, it breaks it into a 1, 1, 5, 3, 1, whatever it is, 1, 5, 3, it's just this stroke dash turns into those stroke dashes. And which is like the fundamentals of architecture. It's just syncopated grids, Chipperfield, rhythm, and I'll show you that in a second. So we have the stroke dash algorithm. The transform is the parameters. It's this stuff over here. So it's the spacing. So if I want to go, 1, 5, 3, 1, we've just got a UI that's creating that stroke dash pattern. I'll bring in a reader panel over here to see what's happening. And to actually see the data in this flow, you have to click these goggles. And there you can see the data coming out of this transform. So there's 1, 5, 3, 1. So that's that. And there's the offset of 5 at the start. And there it is. So that's what the actual transform is. That basically goes into this stroke dash algorithm and tells it what to do. That's how you tweak the nodes, whatever they are, the knobs. And then I'm going to do an offset. So I'm going to grab the strokes and I'm going to offset them to the left, and I'm going to offset them 0.2. All right. And I get nothing. And this is why, okay, now the reason I get nothing is because this is an array of strokes, and this offset requires a feature. So you can see there's like the square brackets. It means an array. Now, Grasshopper does all this implicit array mapping. So if you put an array into a box or a battery in Grasshopper, it automatically passes that array, and that's why you have these trees and this tree matching stuff, which is really fun, but also very difficult to maintain, and I would say almost insane at scale. And so you see people do these huge scripts, and they've got these like trees, and I was doing it, and once you've got 3 nested trees, and you're absolutely cooked. So we just use map, and map basically, it's like a loop. So you just take in an array, you map over, so you apply a function to every element in the array. So we do it very explicitly, which is a bit more cumbersome, but in terms of maintenance, it's much better, or much easier. And so you can see now I get this thing. So now what I need to do is, you can see I'm writing out my root feature, which is this retail. And now you can see there's a little facade over there, which isn't great. It's also retail. So there's a couple of options I have here. I can write a feature property, right? And because we know that Giraffe is just properties, and I can, I'll get a parameter, an input parameter, and I'll call it facade color. And I'll select the type color and default it to like a bricky brown. And so now I'm grabbing this and I'm writing a color, and now it goes brown. And now you'll say, well, how did that array how did that feature pass that array? Some of our batteries support array passing. But what I should really do is be consistent and put everything inside a map. We're sort of slowly trying to be smart in terms of how things are passed. And sorry, my graphics card is just stuttering there. I'm going to refresh and hope for the best. Okay, fantastic. That's the other nice thing about Giraffe, sorry, is that it's all in the browser. You just hit refresh and it comes back. It takes a while for the sun to load in the right spot. There we go. Okay, so let's get back into that flow. There it is. So it's going brown and we're getting the stroke dash. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the exact same thing on the dashes. So the strokes are these bits and the dashes are the other bits, the negatives. And so I'm just going to copy this by holding Option, and I'm going to put this into dash, right? And so now, because I'm doing strokes and dashes, I'm getting everything. And then I'm going to write another feature property. This is another Giraffe property called no facade. And no facade makes no facade. All right. There we go. And now I kind of have this facade. Now, I don't want this thing to be a sill. I want it to be a bit higher. So I'll write one more feature property. And it'll be base height. And we'll set it to, I don't know, 3 or something. It's just 3. And we'll see what that does. There we go. Okay, cool. Now you can see those verticals. When we do no facade in Giraffe, we render the verticals out unless you do hide verticals. So I'll write one last property. I think it's hide verticals. I was on the draw layer was not the active layer. So if I do a 1-bedroom, right, there's my usage. So if I click no facade, the facades disappear. And if I hide verticals, the verticals disappear. Okay, and it's hide verticals. So if you get stuck and you're trying to understand what Giraffe's doing, you just click on just do it, look at the data, and then come back into here. So hide verticals. And set that to true. And I would say what I'm doing here is probably the bad way. It's the bad way because I'm explicitly writing these properties down here in the flow. Whereas what I should do is I should create a usage here called facade, and then I should set hide verticals true and no facades and do all of that stuff here. So I should have mullion and I should have transom and I should have my facade components. And that would work really well. But so now what's nice is you can see, because I applied this facade to this thing, it got applied to this thing. And I'm just going to hit never stack, so the facade's stacking over there. So now I've got one flow applied to 2 geometries. So it's applied here and it's applied here. Now what's really cool is the parameters that I input. So for this flow, that's anything that's blue. So the feature, the stroke dash transform, and this input parameter facade color, those are saved per feature because obviously the feature is different. And so this green feature is this blue on this one, and this blue feature is this blue on this one. And so what I'm able to do is set this to 1 and set this to, green or yellow or whatever I want, maybe like a white color, and build these facades out like this. And so that's one piece of logic that's now repeating across. And I can go and apply it to all of these things. So I can just keep putting the facade maker on this stuff and changing the stroke dash array. So maybe it's 1 and then 2, or maybe it's 0.1 and then 2. And maybe that's 0. And maybe, once we start doing this stuff, we get a bit further into design development. We want to parameterize that offset. So we just add an input parameter. And this will be facade depth. And it should be a number. And actually, I actually want it over there on the blade, not on the transom. So, and the default value should be 0.2, and that should work. And facade depth number. wonder why I'm not getting the offset number, the offset side, the offset number. Okay. So now, sorry, this is something unexpected is happening, and I don't know what it is. Oh, I know what's happened. Okay, so you see the graphics card again is frozen. Sorry. Filming the screen, and doing Giraffe. It's all too much. That's what I expected to see. All right, so you can see I've got this offset depth is now parameterized, right? So I can do this. And this one, it's also parameterized. It's coming out 3 meters. And so now you can add a bit of depth to the facade, and it's parameterized per geometry. Okay, cool. So hopefully that makes sense. And you can imagine sort of having lots and lots of these flows, and I'll sort of jump around a bit now and show you some more. But I just wanted to build one up by, I guess, from first principles. You can change your graphic styles. You can chuck this in a Nano Banana now and get some unbelievable images. And yeah, that's sort of the way the tool works. You can see I'm kind of mucking around with the display and changing the line colors, etc. Let's delete that. And I'll add some roads, because why not? So infrastructure, road with trees, and another road with tree. Oh no, that's our park. So let's put a road with trees over here. So yeah, so a lot of these things, what you're seeing here are just flows, and these are our default flows. So let me show you one that I was working on yesterday, which I was very happy with. This is called a dingbat building. It's it's in LA. It's called the dingbat building. It's like the car parks are under the building. So this is just a flow, and what it's doing is it's solving for a dingbat building. And if I open it up, it looks like this. So it's more developed. A fair bit of logic. It's using our block editor. So we have these blocks. So I've got like a dingbat service wall block, and that's a kitchen, a bathroom, and then this facade element, and then those doors. And you can see if I come around the back of the building, which I haven't done, there's the kitchen, the bathroom, and there is this facade element. So I'm just placing a block, and I have another block, which is my facade screen, which looks like this. And then just like you would think of a block editor, if I jump into this guy and I make this stuff a different color, like a darker gray, and hit save, those guys become a darker gray. And so any kind of block, as you update the blocks, all the block instances change. And so here I'm using a number of, if you think of the data sources now, I've got all my properties. So I've got like this hollow core floor, which has these properties, no facades. I'm using flow, quite a complex flow, to subdivide these things. And then I'm using blocks to kind of instantiate geometries that are nested into that flow. And then I've got the geometry. And so I'm getting, a relatively diverse set of data sources all working for me. But once you get the way the river works, it'll flow very, very naturally. And this, I can't, maybe I'll try open it in a second. Here's another one that I'd like to show you. And this is maybe the last kind of thing I'll show. And then I don't know how much longer, 10 minutes. So if there's any questions, let me know. And let me turn this off.
Yeah, I think feel free to keep flowing. We don't have to a hard cut off, but
yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's really cool to see it in action.
Let me show you this. Let me show you SVG Exporter. Okay, so this is what I was talking about at the start. So there's one more way of telling Giraffe how to work for you. So we've got flow, we've got the usages, we've got the drawing tools, we've got the mapping. And there is probably the biggest feature is our SDK. And an SDK is just a software developer's kit. It's basically like the Revit API or like doing C# in Rhino, where you can write bits of code, textual code, that interact with the Giraffe model. So we've got this app store, and each of these are apps that are written in JavaScript that come in and do stuff, right? And some of our clients write these apps for themselves, and we write some, and they could do anything from, they could do anything. So I had like Rob app. I don't know if that's an old one, probably won't work, but there's a whole bunch of apps here. One app that I created was a live code app, and that's like a meta app. It's an app that makes other apps. So the live code app has this canvas here where you can write code, and then you can hide that code, and that code gets rendered in this canvas over here. And the code has to have this exports.userapp function, but then you can do anything. And the key thing here is this const baked section. So this is the Giraffe baked sections I keep describing Giraffe as this river of data with multiple sources, like the blocks, the usages, the geometries, the flows. The end of the river, when everything's been added, every property's been worked out by the Giraffe engine, is called baked section. So that's baked. We've baked them. And if you look at the baked section like this, if I add a building, and I'll just do a single building and show you the baked section. Say it's a community building. So eval, that should say baked. This is all the data that's been added to this geometry by the engine. So we've got the area, the gross area, the net area, the saleable area, the perimeter, the height, the base height. Is it top of the stack? So is it the top section in a building? So all of this information, the jobs, all of this stuff. So this is coming from the community usage, as well as what the users add, as well as what the flows added, as well as the block. So it's like this really rich data set. The input data is just this, just says usage community. And then Giraffe is adding the rest, right? So that's the baked sections. So you get this code over here to grab these baked sections and muck around with them. And so this is this example that I needed. I needed SVG out. And you can tell this is written by an LLM. So I took my default live code app, which when you add, it just has a little applet. And I said, hey, I've got GeoJSON, and I copy one of my GeoJSONs in to the LLM. So you say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is kind of the data that it comes. And then the LLM goes, oh, I see what's going on. This is canonical GeoJSON. And, all the properties are in a properties key. And there's a color property, which, does color. And there's a stroke color that does stroke, right? And if I'd added a stroke width, there's a stroke width. And there's all the things that the LLM needs to create SVG, because our properties and SVG properties are very similar. Like Giraffe is very committed to just if it's color, it's color, right? The thing that's made me stop using a major vendor is they had a type, like an integer type, but it wasn't just int, it was brand name int. And I was like, why the fuck? So all of my code from somewhere else won't work now because your int is not an int, it's a special int. So Giraffe is just, if it's a color, it's a color. So then the LLM did this in one hit. So it produced this code. And so now I've got this SVG and I can download that SVG. SVG opens in Illustrator, SVG opens in all sorts of things. And it's just live, right? So it's getting my model and it's creating this SVG. And it's actually doing it by stack order. So if I change the stack order, right, there's this stack order property somewhere. There it is, stack order. So if I change this thing stack order to 1, it'll put it on that canvas over there. And that way I can export everything by level. So Giraffe didn't have a levels exporter to SVG. But rather than, bothering the guys or putting in a feature request or whatever, I just implemented that feature for me. And if I wanted to add grid lines, or if I wanted to add an area schedule per level, or if I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do, I would write my own code. So if you're in a large practice, you could be dealing with, say, university clients that are trying to decant students or stage out a master plan. And the best thing to do, in my humble opinion, would be to build a Giraffe data ontology like this, and then write an app for that client. So I'll show you the other one I did yesterday, which I am relatively proud of. Okay, so this is, again, I'm in the live code app. So I shared this with someone and he's upgraded it a lot since I last saw it. And he's got 1,000 lines of code. So what this thing does is, that's just funny. Okay. What this thing is doing is there's a flow. I've got this envelope, which let me just select it. So the envelope is a flow, and it's taking a geometry and it's creating these zones, the front, the rear, the side setback zones. And then it's going through every geometry in the model, and it's figuring out, is there any intersection? Like, is this geometry in the front setback zone or the side or the rear? So what's going to happen if let me just lock this envelope layer. So this geometry now is tested. And so if I move it into this rear setback zone, which you can see if I move it, you see that blue zone? That's the rear setback. So if it comes in, the setback is violated. Okay. And if I add the levels, see now the height is violated. And there's a landscape area. So here's my landscape. And if I shrink it too low, my landscape site coverage gets too low. And if he's added this awesome like inspector. So if I can see how much excess or lack of land I have. Now, so this whole app, I promise you I implemented in 2 hours. Mine looked worse. So, and I know this particular person we're talking about, he would have done it quickly because he's a master of the LLMs. But this is a very custom bespoke bit of logic that is taking Giraffe, and it's just making it look like something completely different. So now it's like a DA assessment tool, which I guess you may be in a practice that is doing complex geometry and really difficult, like maybe say healthcare or defense or education or sort of really complex projects, life sciences, and sort of little house DAs may make no sense to you. But exactly the same techniques work. Like if you wanted to automate a door schedule and get it from, you know what I mean? Like automate signage and escape routes, etc. It's just going to be code. It's going to look something like this, and it'll output it. And then you brand it and you use it. So that's pretty, I think this is unbelievable. This is kind of agentic. You build these agents and you just keep adding them to the app. I'll add another one. I'll show you another one that I built. I had the feature request where someone said, I love Giraffe, but I can't look at the model from underneath. And that's because in Mapbox, like we're locked, the camera will never go negative. So I added this viewer and you can look underneath. And all this is a Three.js window. Again, and I added it so you could lighten and change the lights and you could save views. But again, this took probably 2 hours to build this app, and it downloads all the views. And I'll show you one last one, which is another app. So if we go back to our dingbat building, which I am for some reason like extremely partial to, we've got another app, which is this IFC app, which we write. So you get this IFC app when you get Giraffe, and all it's doing is it's exporting to IFC. You can see it takes a while to load because it's actually on a separate server. So this is iframed in. And so if I select the dingbat, it's going to process those 583 geometries. And I'll do the little unofficial conic. Maybe I won't. But it comes out basically as IFC walls. We're not doing windows yet, but we will soon. But this is now this is a canonical IFC, right? You can open this in Navisworks or Revit or Archi-Cad, whatever it is, and these guys will come in as walls. So there's the IFC walls, the IFC slabs, and it's broken down by story. So you can imagine as a scaled out planner, you can be building these dingbats all around the place, and then exporting them to IFC to go to the next stage of design. And you could build really. I use the eyedropper there to draw that line and then add the properties. There's a few, you may not like this kind of like weird sort of droid appearance. So you can do this thing so it just sits on the ground. But you can imagine a pattern book architecture and like a configurator, either for a master plan or for a firm or for a project, and then export it to IFC. And then inside of like a Conic or a Revit, you can then go to the next level. So what I do is I just download this IFC, down it comes to my downloads. And then I'll just add it here. Hopefully you can't see what I'm doing now. And I'll upload it. And It's now uploading into Conic, and then we'll open it and start applying finishes. And hopefully you guys are following what Conic doing. I think it's pretty incredible. It's kind of, it's unbelievable. So now I'm in Conic. I've just uploaded that file, and so now it's doing its thing, calculating through the geometry, and then we'll have this IFC file that you can then start saying, okay, well, my ceramic buildup is this, or my insulation, or doing IFC kind of detailed design things. So maybe while that loads, I'll keep yakking, or unless there's any questions.
Yeah, let me jump in. Well, I mean, I think there was a lot of questions at the beginning, and then some of the Giraffe channel answered a couple of them. But yeah, I mean, first of all, you've built this incredible platform. Like, it is sort of mind blowing what you've built, like the depths and
it's too deep. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, particularly I have to say, given that you guys are still somewhat like a bootstrap startup, right? You don't got like a massive funding like some of these other guys.
No, we don't.
It's really incredible what you've built. And so there you go. This is it in Conic.
Yeah. So now, if say you click on these guys, and so like Conic has this cool stuff where you can add add layers, and so I'm going to choose you choose a material. It's like this until it's all, because it's loading it. So then I'll choose my materials. So say, let's go brass, 0.5 mils of brass. And then you just start adding brass to the model, and it's going to start adding it, right? And that's now a built up, and you can see all these junctions over here. Like Conic is also doing, that's a bad junction because of my fault. But if you click heal in Conic, it will actually resolve and heal and flow these layers and these doors and join all the walls in a good way. So you can go from this really rapid model prototype, and then what Conic's doing, which I think I haven't seen before, is it's kind of taking semi-structured data and it's fully structuring it, and it's propagating this information through and using the ML to go that last step, which I think it's the perfect complement to Giraffe. It's unbelievable. So I've been
so I see you guys are sort of collaborating in some way, which is quite exciting. Maybe to take maybe to summarize, because there's a lot you've covered there, right? In that, I mean, even going back to the beginning in the site, I think a lot of people were commenting just from the beginning of the zooming out to the site, and you've got all these databases and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think I've seen a platform where you can access all of this stuff in one place. And you're zooming out into the world. It's
it's good. No, and this I think you
don't have all of them right now, but you have, like you said, London, Hong Kong, and some other places, right?
No, I would say we do. So Brazil, Uruguay,
wow.
No, as in you can, if in your jurisdiction, if your government or if you've got people that are publishing geodata, you just connect with Giraffe. You just find their server and you connect to it. And if they've got a password and you have the password, you connect to it. So our clients, we've got users, for example, in the Nordics that I've never spoken to, and I know they've connected to Nordic data sets.
Wow.
But I don't speak whatever, Nordic languages. So the server will be in Norwegian or Swedish or Finnish or whatever it is, but they'll have connected to it and are using it. So you can kind of configure Giraffe for Japan, right? We've got Japanese layers and we've got Thai layers in there. So you can connect. We've got 30,000 at the moment that I know about, but there'll be others. So you just connect. It's like the age of the API, it's just APIs, just connect. Yeah.
I mean, it just seems mad in a good way. No.
Well, what seems mad to me is that no one's done it.
Yeah.
Because there was a whole class of Rhino problems, of Grasshopper problems. So I would say 50% of my scripts, of my Grasshopper scripts, the first 20% was pulling data in somehow, importing, copy pasting, and kind of everyone's solving that. Arcol, SketchUp, SnapDrew, they're all at Forma, they're all pulling in a tile of the world using generally the same APIs that we use, I think, because that's just the way you do it. And then the other sort of 30% of my scripting was always like working out the area tables and like exporting the data in a good way. So Giraffe's just done both of those bits so that the only bit left is kind of like the fun bit, like the design bit. So yeah, because you just get the map for free. It's just there. You don't need to import it.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. You've kind of got this. You come into Giraffe. You can find all this information about your site. You can quickly
Sketch it up.
generate like a massing and even create diagrams. I know you guys also have like sheets and stuff that we probably.
Oh yeah, we've got sheets. Yeah, we've got a number of ways of doing sheets. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can kind of create diagrams. Look at that, all the buildings are in that. That's crazy.
Oh no, so it's like, so if I was going fast, right? Yeah, I would go, what's your site? Okay, this is it. So I won't fill it, but let's do let's do retail ground floor, and then let's copy paste and we'll do some commercial on top. Okay, let's say. And then I come here and I would import my metric template, and now I've got my costs, my feasibility, my income, my building footprint, my FSR, my all of the stuff, right? So when I'm actually going quickly and not belaboring it, you get like an insane distance in 5 minutes. Like you go like from nothing to something really good.
Yeah, and so you can, I guess you can use these scripts which you call flows,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you can either access ones that have already been built, or just
Yeah.
build them yourselves, as you were kind of
Yeah.
showing there.
Yeah.
So you can create your own scripts and processes,
Yeah.
and then you can export. I guess we didn't show. I know you can export like a document like a PDF or a report.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So let me show
Then-
that. Yeah.
Then you've got this kind of what you described as the app maker, which is
Mm-hmm.
essentially like, because this is all just data in the
Mm-hmm.
background. This app, you can just make anything. Like I need
Correct.
like a UK planning report. Like this is the format, and you can just kind of
You can make it's like a JavaScript app, so it's React. So Facebook, Instagram, they're all written in JavaScript, normally React. It's just React. So you have the entire ecosystem of the internet at your disposal. And something that was like a big thing for me when I started Giraffe, and I was in Rhino and I loved Rhino, and I wanted to get, I wanted more people to do computational design. And I looked at total number of Grasshopper downloads. At the time was 200,000 total downloads. It was on the Ning, it was like whatever it was, right? This was back in the day. And on that same day, I went to NPM, which is the JavaScript library repository. And there was like, I think something for React, there was something like 2 million downloads that day, just on that day. So the difference in scale between the internet, right? So think of Google, Facebook, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Canva, Adobe, Figma. Think of their revenue and their R&D spend, right? The entire revenue of Autodesk is like $4 or $5 billion. Maybe it's 8 or 9. I think Google, like NVIDIA, is going to make 30 billion in profit this quarter. Something, it's like stupid, right? It's ludicrous. And this is why Nano Banana, like it just hits AEC from the side. So Google's like tinkering away with image generation, as a side hobby. But they'll put like $4 billion of R&D into it and just forget about it. And they suddenly they've done this thing, right? So this toddler play, I just took this is Nano Banana. I took a screenshot of this, jumped it into the Nano Banana, which is the Google thing, and you get that render. And so suddenly they're like an AEC player, kind of without even trying to be an AEC player. So I just knew that if you wanted to do fun computational stuff, you needed to be tapped into the main line, which was the internet. And which is why we said like it's just JavaScript and JSON, which is like the raw material that the internet is made out of. Like JSON, Instagram will use JSON on the database and JavaScript. Everyone does. So just use it. That was kind of the motivator.
Yeah, I see. And so how do you see, architects and developers, or they're slightly two different crowds, but at the moment it's a little more leaning towards that feasibility. You create the thing and then you can potentially export it to Rhino or Revit or
Conic,
Conic or whatever you're using. Is that how you find people are using it initially? Obviously, you have ambitions
Yeah,
to go beyond
yeah,
that. But
yeah. I think so. That would be fair. I think like it's all these like BIM2, crew are in that early stage,
yeah,
drawing blobs basically. Where I see it going is more agentic. So if you draw a blob and you say, hey, this blob represents a commercial building, right? And I'm an architect and I want to shape it like that. There's enough information on the screen there to do quite a lot. Like you can have a script that does a facade, or you may have an air conditioning script or a vertical transportation script that sizes the core. Like how many lifts do you need? And so a lot of the AEC jobs kind of depend on, the master vision, which is the architect's responsibility, which is like, hey, this is the direction strategically, that this is the shape we're making. So I see the as a service ecosystem. So facade engineering, structural engineering, all of those things as a service. So I can imagine a world where you draw this and then you say, hey, I want to see timber diagrid, I want to see in situ concrete, I want to see steel, and I want to, and it just goes do, 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 and it just gives you those options. Kind of like a Gen AI, but probably not Gen AI, probably actually like properly engineered scripts. And then the architect is much more, I don't know, like an orchestrator of process, rather than I'm going to open it in Revit, I'm going to place a little column, and then I'm going to draw 5 columns, and then I'm going to send it to the engineer, and they're going to analyze. That I think is dying. And once you say, okay, look, a lot of that stuff's going to be automated, then the fun bit becomes, how do we as human designers help automate it, like control the system, and how do we interact with the system in a way that is not like you're getting crushed by the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's
and then you go deep, because then you can go to. So like say this, like I open this. This is our. So I didn't even show this. This is our content library. You can like upload content to the content library, but I can do this. So I just drew that blob, and then I do that, and now like I just got the properties, so the base height went up and the levels changed. But there's my blob again, and now I've got a facade on that blob, right? Which may not be the facade I want, but it's, imagine a less crude script. You would just have the right facade on this blob, or you may have within your office. This is where I think it could be interesting. In an architectural office, you may have a facade team building like parametric facade objects, and then you have a massing team, and those two interact like via these scripts without, so yeah, I think this is where it goes to detail, because there's enough information here now to go to manufacture. Like I should be able to go to G. James, or I don't know who the facade manufacturer is in Europe or in England, and say, this is how many panels I want. These are my corner conditions. This is where my building is. I've got it geolocated so the rain and the sun and the wind, like all that engineering, and the reflectivity and which streets are nearby. So you can do all of that stuff. You don't need much more information. I don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like you need to process the the depth of this. It's really impressive. Just the layers of how you built this stuff is incredible.
Yeah, the team, crazy. And the team is small.
Yeah. How many people is it?
We're about 15, 16 people, but the sort of, I'd say the R&D function, or like the dev function is, including me, sort of about 5.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, like, most of our like salespeople or customer support will often end up just writing apps. Like, you'll have a customer in Texas that needs to look at a flood layer or something. So you'll write an app, and they're like, I get confused by the platform. And so you're like, all right, I'll just write you a little app that just does the one thing that you want to do. And then your training burden, you know what I mean? So it becomes so configurable, like it just grows of its own accord.
I think we were talking in the podcast, you're finding most of your clients, are they more developers than architects? Like, what is your demographic?
I would say an even split. So government, so that's local, like city municipalities, state governments that are like, say, infrastructure, like transport or education, like departments that are creating infrastructure. Then we've got private sector developers, like Trammell Crow or Lend Lease, so sort of like tier ones, and then the architects. And by number, the architects are probably about 20-30%. And sorry, the family's waking up now, so there's the noise. The and I'm really keen to get more architects. I think what I've learned is I was an unusual architect, as in I was far. I think computational design is, I don't know what percentage of architects are computational designers, but probably 10 or 20 at the outside.
Yeah, quite low.
Yeah. And then this is like, there's a bunch of paradigms inside of Giraffe that are new even to computational designers. So it's like, I only now do I realize how fringe this is. But I do think it behooves, like it will pay back. If you learn this tool, it will pay you back like 1,000 times. Because if you know Giraffe, you actually just understand internet. Like it's just JSON. It's just JSON and JavaScript and functions. So there's no mystery. There's no Giraffe specific knowledge. We can never do a GU Giraffe Uni and like teach you. It's just Postgres. It's just like, it's just, yeah, like Postgres, Instagram. I think Speckle's on Postgres now. Like it's just, you know what I mean? It's raw technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since I hear your family waking up in the background, well, it's a good time to maybe wrap it up. Where can people find you guys? Can people use it right now? What's the best
Oh
way
yeah.
to
So there's free
jump
trial. So
into
go to
Giraffe?
giraffe.build. For the single user, it's $45 a month. But yeah, you get a 2-week trial. Email me if you want to, extend it. Yeah, and I'm on LinkedIn. So if Rob Asher on LinkedIn, you'll easily find me. Yeah, so reach out. Love to chat.
Yeah, I'll post the website in the chat. But yeah, I definitely recommend to give Rob a follow on LinkedIn. You always post these little examples that are pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm always tinkering and posting.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe feel free to unshare your screen. We'll just do a little goodbye and
Yeah.
yeah, Rob, I really appreciate that. It's like what you guys have built is just mind blowing. I'm still like processing it myself, but it's really impressive. Congrats with what you've built with your team.
Yeah,
We
thank
will
you.
also be hearing more from you here on ATN. You're going to be part of our ATN Summit. So
Yep.
as
Yep.
you guys know on the channel, we're going to have our conference. I should be pushing this a bit more. Let me share my screen so I can give people a little bit of update of what's going on. So yeah, next year in London, we are sharing a whole bunch of new stuff with our conference, which is on the 18th and 19th of March next year. Rob will be there talking more about Giraffe. We got a whole bunch of stuff that's going on at the moment. In fact, today we just launched our first workshop with Big and D5. It's a free workshop where you can learn how to use D5 taught by some people from Big. So you can sign up. It's completely free. It's going to be on YouTube. So we'll see you there. And tickets are going to be releasing next week. So stay tuned for that. This is the first time we're announcing it, Rob. So this is a breaking news here.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be releasing tickets next week. And yeah, you'll be able to meet Rob in person and some of the draft team maybe. And that's the whole point of the summit, is to gather innovators and create collaborations and meetings, and like you and Conic collaborating. I'm really excited about that as well. So that's really great.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate you the early morning. And guys, we'll see you on the next live, which is next week, where we're going to actually do a presentation with Big and D5 before the workshop. So we'll see you there. Rob, thanks again. And we'll see you in the next live, guys.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure. Bye.